Okay, so just to remind quickly how we are going to organize this presentation. Firstly, I'm going to present you a bit how the EU is adopting new regulation and this complex decision-making process we have within the EU, and then focus a bit more on what your sector should expect in the coming years based on the priorities of the European Commission, especially with focus on the Green Deal, because I think that's going to be the policy that will affect you most in the coming years. Can you confirm that the sound is better? Yeah, should be.
Absolutely, yes, Sergio. Everybody says it's much better. Keep going.
Perfect. So next slide, please, Thomas. So to introduce, you can put as well the next. Okay, perfect. So basically, you have this graph here on the left that is a bit showing you what is how the EU is taking a decision. First and foremost, we go to the purple part where you see the European Council. So the European Council is representing the member states, especially their heads of states or government from each member state. So 28 member states currently, soon 27 when the UK decides to leave the EU. They are going to set orientation and to a bit define the EU's policy agenda. So when you are, for example, listening to in the press that the Commission is coming out with a proposal, that's not really true, because in fact, they are doing it because the European Council asked the Commission to do so. This can be seen, for example, when we are talking about climate, the fight against the climate change, where the European Council is going to decide that the emission reduction target is going to be, for example, 35%, and then the Commission is going to create and to propose legislation based on that. So that's the first thing. Once you have then the European Commission that's playing, of course, central role in the decision making process, and you need to always keep in mind that you have kind of two European Commissions. You have the political level. Political level is represented by the 28 commissioners. So you have one commissioner from each country with a portfolio that could be trade, internal market, environment, climate, digital, plus their advisors in their cabinet that are helping them working on the day-to-day basis. And the European Commission is as well composed of a service level, so with civil servants that are the ones that are going to draft the law, and that are going to be really on the day-to-day work. So to sum it up, you have like a political orientation going down into the civil servants that are in charge of putting that into concrete piece of legislations. We are talking about now about the ordinary legislative procedure that is in place since the Lisbon Treaty, and the biggest change is that the European Parliament, with MEPs that are elected directly by the citizens. So the European Parliament is in charge of representing the citizens, and the Council of the EU with ministers from each EU countries that are in charge of representing the member states. They are on an equal foot when it comes to the decision-making process. So that's a big change, because before the council was really pro-dominant, and it was, let's say the European Parliament was just there to have a beautiful a window, but not really important. What are the kind of legislation that the co-legislators can adopt? There are basically two pieces of legislation. You can have the regulations or the directives. The main difference between these two pieces of legislation from a legal standpoint is that regulation, it's a direct application in every member state. So let's take a quick example. If you have a regulation that it's starting on the 1st of January, every member state is going to apply the regulation as it is written in the regulation. On the contrary, if you have a directive, you have a transposal within every member state, so that could lead to several small, let's say, differences in the application between the member states. What is important to keep in mind before we move to the next slide is that this decision-making process, especially when the European Commission is drafting the EU law, has a lot of room to influence and to feedback from stakeholders. So basically, before the Commission is going to propose a new initiative, it's going to make an impact assessment. This impact assessment is there to assess economic, social, environmental consequence of the legislative act it is going to propose. And based on that, the Commission is going to consult stakeholders through public consultation, through expert groups, through direct meetings with the stakeholders, and national parliaments as well are going to be able to formally express their position on the piece of legislation. Next slide, please, Thomas. So here we are digging a bit further on the ordinary legislative procedure. As you can see, it's just starting to be more and more complex. So this is the journey a law is going to take before being adopted. So you have the Commission proposal on the top, plus what I just told you from the national parliaments that have 8 weeks to give their opinion on the Commission proposal, and the European Economic and Social Committee, plus the Committee of the Regions are going as well to be able to give their feedback on the proposal. Then the proposal is transmitted to the Parliament and to the Council, and they are going to work in parallel, setting for each institution their positioning into the proposal and trying to work in the after to find a compromise between the two institutions. So here in the graph, it's really how it's done in practice and not how it should be done in theory. Because as you can see, there is an arrow showing informal trilogues, and this is something really important that it's not mentioned in the treaties, and that it's a practice developed in, let's say, in the last 10 years. And now you have, I think, 95% of the legislation that are going through this process. So in the treaty, let me know if I'm just too complex, and if I go if I pass that to focus on other things. But basically, in the treaty, the Parliament is going to adopt this position. The Council is going to adopt this position. That is going to be the first reading, and we are going to come to a second reading when. Where the Parliament is going to use the Council position and then adopt the council position or reject the council position. To avoid that, and especially to go a bit quicker into the process, they decided to organize trilogues. So trilogues, it's an informal meeting between members of the European Parliament plus the country that is running the presidency of the council. Currently, it's Germany, and you have every 6 months you have a rotation in the presidency of the council, and they are going to gather together and find a compromise between the two institutions. So something that both the European Parliament and the Council could agree on, and then they can adopt it during the first reading. So this allows let's say the decision making process to go much more faster. And we are talking about first reading that is going to take 1 year and a half. And if we go to the first reading, second reading, and even third reading, we can talk about 3 to 5 years. So that could be a problem for certain topics where you need to act fast. Next slide, please.
Joe, quick question. There's an obvious question that comes to my mind when I'm looking at this, and I think you asked the question: is it too complicated? Unfortunately, it looks complicated, and there's nothing you can do about that. But is there in your mind, having spent so long in the European Union and in the Commission, decision-making bodies, and meeting all these people, is there an easier way of doing it, or is it just the scale makes this probably the most logical way of decisions being made?
You can always find an easier way to do it, but you always need to keep in mind the complexity of the EU, and from an institutional standpoint. I mean, the EU, contrary to what you can listen when you are listening to politicians. It's a construction where, at the end of the day, national interests have a lot of power in the decision-making process. So it's hard to come to let's say to compare it to a national level. If you want to compare it to national level, you could say, for example, that the Commission is kind of government, and then the Parliament and the Council will be like the two chambers you should have in your own countries. But it's a bit different because if you listen to the press, if you listen to national politicians, they are basically always saying that the Commission has so much power and that they are like kind of obliged to, let's say, to apply what the Commission is proposing. But as you could see in the infographic in this previous slide, the member states are the one that are like setting the orientation, plus they are then involved in the decision making process through the council. And trust me, based on my experience, usually you have the following when there is a proposal from the Commission. The Parliament is going to ask for something much more ambitious than the European Commission proposal, and the Council is going to ask for something far less ambitious. And then they work on the compromise that is usually just a bit less ambitious than the initial proposal from the Commission. So there is so many actors involved in the process that I think it's hard to simplify it, and you will need the approval of the member states. And I think they are pretty happy with the way it's done currently. It's complex. They can. And I have several examples of that if you want. They can just move towards some orientation and then put the blame on the commission or on the parliament. So for them, it's a, let's say it's a perfect solution.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Sergio. I'll move on to the next slide for you. Thank you.
So the next slide in this infographic is really made to make you understand how the decision-making process is influenced. Most of the time, we just have the feeling that you have the commission and it's going to be influenced by lobbies, but it's far much more complex than that. In the center of this infographic, you have the EU institutions with what we so called the institutional triangle. So the European Commission, the Council, and the European Parliament, and you see exchange between those boxes just to make you understand that by the way they position themselves, they are influencing the other institutions. And same, you have the Court of Audit, you have the Economic and Social Committee, plus the Committee of Region as well, influencing. If we move to the top of this graph, you have the member states. You have several. You have two circles in there. It's to highlight that depending on the member states, of course, is weight into this process is different. If Cyprus or Malta, no offense, of course, are raising their voice into on a certain topic, they are going to be less powerful than if it's Germany, France, or another huge member states. There are going to be member states that are going to be able to influence directly the work of the Council of the EU because they have their own ministers participating into the legislative works. And they are going to be able to influence, of course, the works of the European Parliament. In a way, even if the European Parliament is supposed to represent the citizen, at the end of the day, let's be clear about that. You remain an MEP coming from Sweden or an MEP coming from the UK, and you are going to defend, in a way, your national interests. The member states, they are both the member states and the European Commission. They are as well going to influence the works of the European Court of Justice in a way that the European Commission can sue member states in front of the Court of Justice if they are not applying correctly EU legislation, and same the member states can do the same, suing the European Commission if they estimate that the legislations proposed are not respecting the treaties, for example. On the top right, you have the medias. So the medias is the same. Member states, they are going to influence the let's say the medias, and same what the news from the EU institutions are going to influence how some topics are treated by the medias, and at the same time the way that the medias are going to position themselves on certain topic is going to influence politicians at both at national and European level. So it's always keep that in mind. In the bottom of this infographic, you have what I call the lobbying sphere. So it's composed of federations, associations, the trade unions, and enterprise, and they are going to influence the works of the EU institution by doing lobbying, by participating in public consultations, or in expert groups, or in stakeholder events. They are going as well to influence EU legislation by suing, for example, the member states or the European Commission in front of the Court of Justice. And at the same time, they are influenced by the work of the institution, by the jurisprudence from the courts of justice, and so on. And just to finish on this slide, you have all the left of this infographic, and it's just to for you to keep in mind, because when we are talking about influence, people have a tendency to forget that we are living in a globalized world. What does this mean? Is that when you have legislation that is debated at EU level, it is as well debated at global level in different organizations. For example, if you have these agencies, talking about OECD work, about G20 work, and if you follow closely the news, the European Commission currently is trying to put in EU legislation all the works of the G20 when it comes to tax evasion, to fiscal harmonization, and so on. Same with WTO. Of course, you have the experts and think tanks as well that are influencing the decision-making process. And a quick word on third states. I'm telling people that you have three legislative powers in the world. You have the EU, you have the US, and you have China. Because we are talking about, let's say, the three biggest markets from an economic standpoint, and from a legislation standpoint, about three of maybe the four most important blocks in the world. What is happening and how the US and China are influencing the works of the European Commission, and the other way around, is that as we are living in a globalized world, when there is a topic on the table, EU institutions, they are going to watch what is done elsewhere. I can give you a quick example on that. Currently, everyone is talking about blockchain, and the EU is considering to adopt some legislation, both on blockchain as well on artificial intelligence. The problem is that both the US and China, they are already in the process, or they have already adopted legislation in that regard. So what is going to happen for the European Commission is that in a way, it's going to be kind of obliged. Don't like the term, but let's use it, to copy most of what the US and China have decided when it comes to blockchain, because companies that are going to ask for harmonized standards, they are going to ask for kind of a normalization of legislation at a worldwide level, and I can understand that. But always keep that in mind where you are working, for example, on a topic, and look what the other ones they are doing. An example that can come into mind is when we are talking, for example, into charging points for electric vehicles, because we just take the EU. Currently, you have, I think, 2 or 3 standards for charging points. You have some standards coming from China, and it's a mess. And at some point, they are going to need to only choose one standard, and the first one that is going to create a legislation on that is probably going to impose that to everyone at a worldwide level. Next slide. Yep. So in the next section, I'm going to present you a bit what are going to be the priorities of the EU in the next 5 years, and especially focus on how the ICT aftermarket is going to be impacted by those policies. So just to as an introduction to highlight that the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen highlighted 6 political priorities that would shape the work program of the Commission for her mandate, so until 2024. First one is a stronger Europe in the world, with the objective to let's say, currently we always say we are laughing in Brussels, and we compare the EU to an economic giant, but a political dwarf when we are at let's say foreign policy level. And that's the first priority, is to change a bit that, and to give more voice to the EU in the international scene, and especially to have more coordination with the member states when they are when they decide to position themselves in into foreign affairs issues. Second priority is the European Green Deal. We are going to focus a bit more on that just in a few minutes. The third priority is digital. So is how you can create the right regulation for the EU to adapt to this new incoming technologies, such as 5G, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and of course, how you tax those technologies. Fourth priority is the economy, and it's going to be even more important after the coronavirus economic crisis. So how you can support SMEs, how you can support the financing of the economy. Fifth priority is what's called a new push for European democracy. So basically is how you can tackle this image the Commission has in public opinions, and how you can give a stronger role to citizens in the decision-making process. How you can strengthen the relationship between the Commission and the Parliament, and so on. And the last priority is called as well promoting the European way of life. And here it's basically migration management and internal security, with a special focus on the fight against terrorism, against radicalism, and so on. Next slide, please, Thomas. So let's focus here on the EU Green Deal. So just to keep in mind the main context around the Green Deal, you have the Paris Agreement. That's the first thing in 2015, where the EU committed to limit global warming below 2 degrees. So that's the first thing. Then you have the European Council that endorsed the objective to achieve a climate neutral EU by 2050, even if Poland decided to opt out from this objective. So this is the political context. But on the other side, you have another context that's for the EU and for the politicians, how they can tackle this movement that can be seen especially in Western Europe, where you have some growing concerns from the citizens on climate issues, and this is translated by the rise of the green parties. If you have seen let's say the last elections, for example, in France or in Belgium or in other member states, you clearly see that people are like more and more voting for green parties. At the same time, before COVID-19, of course, you had several citizens demonstration or youngsters demonstration to promote more the climate, and you have as well other parts of the world that are pushing for this Green Deal idea. For example, you have some new members in the Democrat party in the U.S. I think it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that first pushed for this Green Deal, and it was a way as well for the EU to keep its positioning, where it used to always say that the EU is the leader of the fight against climate change. The main objective of the EU Green Deal is really to make Europe the first climate neutral continent, and at the same time to boost EU competitiveness and to ensure the transition for the sectors and for the regions that are going to be affected by this transition. It's important to highlight that the commissioner in charge of the EU Green Deal is the first executive vice president of the Commission. So giving this portfolio to the first executive vice president is really underlining how important for the Commission and for the president of the Commission this topic is. And the main key elements of the Green Deal is really a biodiversity strategy. It's like a farm to fork strategy for the agriculture, new circular economy action plan, the review of the EU ETS, so that's the carbon market, and the review of the tax policies in order to align them with climate ambition. Next slide, please. So what the aftermarket sector should expect in the coming years. So within the Green Deal, the Commission released in March a circular economy action plan to update its work on circular economy. I think the first circular economy action plan was released in 2015. They try to focus on energy efficiency mostly and on waste management during the first action plan. But this new action plan is really targeting the sectors that use most resources. And in particular, that's going to be interesting for you and for your sector. It's going to target electronics and ICT with an upcoming circular electronics initiative that's going to currently that's scheduled for Q4 2021. This circular electronic initiative is going to be important because it's going to establish for the first time a right to repair that will include a right to update obsolete software. So I think this is a massive way forward for your sector. Even though when we analyze the proposal from the Commission, we have the impression that the provisions mostly focus on wide public, I mean on laptops, tablets, and smartphones, and not really on B2B activities, for example. Another key point that will impact your sector as well is the review of the eco-design framework that is as well foreseen for Q4 2021. And I would not be surprised if both legislation are proposed at the same time in a huge package. But the overall idea here around eco-design is really how you can currently eco-design is mainly focused on energy savings, and it's how you can let's say you can review the framework to integrate other considerations in it, such as maintenance, reuse, recycling. You still listening to me?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, Sergio, I was putting myself on mute to make sure I didn't
Yeah.
disturb, but yes, and there's people dropping into the chat. Yes, everybody's listening.
Oh, okay,
Everybody's still
perfect.
here. Yeah, no, we've got a good crowd. So they're all saying yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect. I just have a quite small issue with my headset, so that's why I was asking. Okay, so what are Free ICT Europe doing currently to a bit, let's say, anticipate those changes? So first and foremost, we are working on the circular economy action plan. That's the first thing. So the European Parliament, in the aftermath of this circular economy action plan, decided to do own initiative reports to give its opinion on the proposal of the Commission. So this own initiative report is non-binding, but is important because it is going to let's say to represent the position of the European Parliament on this topic. So with Thomas and Jan, we met the rapporteur of this text. It's Jan Uytema. It's MEP coming from the Netherlands, and we presented to him basically all the issues the sector is facing and how the new regulation could help to and could tackle especially this relationship, this toxic relationship that OEMs are trying to do with their customers, to tackle those lock-ins, to tackle planned obsolescence, and so on. I think that it was an interesting interesting meeting, and just hope that the rapporteur is going to use our feedback in his proposal. At the same time, we worked with the shadows. So basically, the rapporteur is from Renew Europe. That's the Liberals group. So let's say center right, depending on the countries. And we worked with the shadows, so representing the other groups, in order to table some amendments on the rapporteur proposals. At this stage, we know that the Greens they tabled most of the amendments we submitted to them. And in that regard, we are going to follow the process closely once all the amendments are made public, and then we are going to try to influence as much as possible all the decision makers to have the provisions we are asking for into the final positioning. Basically, those positions they are to include to include the B2B in the business to business activities into the scope of the future right to repair, to include software into this right to repair, to try to push for a bigger role for independent players in reuse, in maintenance, in recycling, and as well to regarding the eco design framework, to push for other let's say to push for other provisions to be integrated in. So we will see. We'll have a clear view. I think next week we should be able to have all the amendments, and from that we will work around it. At the same time, as you can see, There are two big pieces of legislation that are going to be proposed at the end of 2021. Here you can say, yeah, it's far. It's like in more than it's like in 1 year or in almost 1 year. But it's important to start working on that right now. Some public consultations are going to be done at the beginning of 2021. So it's going to be important to participate in those public consultation, and then it's going to be as well important it's going to be as well important to meet with the European Commission and to build some alliances on those topics.
Sergio,
And yeah,
Sergio,
just to
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. Finish up there. Sorry, I was going to ask you a question.
No,
Go ahead.
I was just going to tell you that when we are talking about eco design framework, it's the same as the sustainable product initiative that you might have heard, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you a question? I'm conscious of time. We're getting close to the end of the webinar. We've got only about 5 minutes left. I do have one question, and there may be questions coming into the chat, but there's one question that comes to my mind. We have a range of people in the audience from all sorts of backgrounds. If we were to suggest to them how they might help our initiatives, obviously, clearly our goal is to ensure fair play in the market, maintain choice, and improve sustainability along the way, which is increasingly a more and more important thing, as you've already outlined. And I think we know as citizens, not just of the European Union, but we know as citizens of the planet. What could they do as European citizens to help us on this journey? What are the simple things that they could do? What would you suggest?
The first thing is that, and I've seen that a lot based on my experience, is that when you have someone running a company, usually it doesn't care that much about policy making, because he's really let's say focus on his business, focus on the expansion.
We lost you for a second there, Sergio. I think your mic has just fallen out. Do you want to go again? I think we lost Sergio. I think the point Sergio was making there, because we've discussed it before many times, is, and we know this, I know this myself as somebody who runs a business, we all get focused on our own businesses. We all have our own challenges day to day. I think the key issue is for participation and to help is to clearly, as citizens, to engage with our European policymakers. There are local ones at the MEP, as you saw earlier. Sergio explained how the structure works, but also by engaging with those who influence as well. We found one of the most powerful ways that we've been able to influence the Commission and decision making, particularly when we look at our success in the Eco Design Directive, was the ability to work with others, others who had similar objectives, similar goals to ourselves, and by leveraging their expertise, their knowledge, and collectively, we were clearly a lot more powerful than we realized ourselves. So there are those of you who clearly have access to certain decision makers. That would be important, and to feed it back to us directly. So to come back to us and let us know what the situation is, and can you help us? So I think we've lost Sergio, unfortunately. We will listen, Sergio. I think you've done a fantastic job there. I'm not sure if you can still hear us, but I'd like to thank you, and on your behalf, I'll thank all the people who've attended today. We've got a good audience. Apologies again for the issues at the beginning of the webinar. I think we're all used to these things today. I think 1 in 10, if not more, of these Zoom calls, team calls, we're all on team fatigue, webinar fatigue. But really, genuinely, thank you for attending. And it's been fantastic that actually all of you stayed with us through the whole thing. I can see that on the attendee list. We will circulate. If you have any questions, please come back to us. We'll be back with some, we'll communicate some dates for our next webinar, which is on the 17th of May. We'll have myself and Jan Hoekstraat with Dan Sheffett discussing in a little bit more detail what can be done on the ground in Europe and how we can help and what are some of these changes and some of these initiatives that Sergio touched on going to really mean for us as businesses as we move forward, and what will the competitive and antitrust, I guess as Americans would use it, landscape look like into the future. So thank you all. Thank you again, Sergio, and we look forward to seeing you all again. Take care.